What if the story you were told was incomplete? What if one of the most famous identities in human history has been reshaped layer by politics, mistranslation, and selective memory? History isn't just written, it's edited. For centuries, we've projected modern ideas of race, religion, and borders onto ancient people who would not recognize any of them. In doing so, we may have lost sight of who they actually were. So we ask a dangerous question, dangerous because it refuses simple answers. If we met the original Israelites today, would we even recognize them? To answer that, we must go back before scripture hardened into doctrine, before identity became ideology, and before history became a weapon. Welcome. This documentary is not an attack on any faith, nor is it an attempt to erase any people living today. Religion is a matter of belief. History is a matter of evidence. Here, we follow archaeology, ancient texts, climate, and DNA. We will examine the Levant and Africa as they were not, as modern politics wants them to be. Some answers may challenge long-held assumptions, but truth doesn't exist to comfort us. It exists to clarify. To understand the Israelites, we must first understand the world that birthed them. Long before a kingdom of David or a temple in Jerusalem, there was Canaan, vibrant crossroads between two superpowers, Egypt to the south and Mesopotamia to the north. Canaan wasn't a single nation. It was a network of city-states, Hazor, Megiddo, Jericho, connected by trade, culture, and language. The people we call Canaanites spoke a northwest Semitic language, the direct ancestor of Hebrew. They were skilled builders, farmers, and merchants. Their religious world was rich and complex, led by a high god named El, alongside deities like Baal and Asherah. And here is the crucial point. The Israelites did not arrive as foreign invaders. Archaeology shows no evidence of a massive outside conquest. Instead, what we see is continuity. The same pottery, the same architecture, the same tools. The earliest Israelites were Canaanites who began to change. Around 1200 BCE, the ancient world collapsed, empires weakened, trade networks broke, cities burned. In this chaos, rural villages began appearing in the highlands of Canaan, small, self-sufficient communities far from imperial control. These people avoided pork. They emphasized family over kings. Their religion slowly narrowed, elevating one god above all others. They didn't suddenly appear, they emerged. The first time the name Israel appears in history is not in the Bible, but on an Egyptian monument called the Merneptah Stele, dated to around 1208 BCE. It describes Israel not as a city or a kingdom, but as a people living in Canaan. This tells us something vital. Israel was born from the land, not imported into it. Then comes the most famous story of all, the Exodus, a mass escape from Egypt. 40 years in the wilderness, a promised land. Archaeologically, the Sinai is silent. There is no evidence of millions of people wandering for decades. But silence doesn't always mean fiction. Historians speak of mythic, memory-real events remembered, reshaped, and expanded over generations. It's likely that a smaller group, possibly laborers or displaced peoples known as the Habiru, fled Egypt, and carried with them a powerful idea that their God stands against empire and oppression. Over centuries, this memory grew into a national epic. The Exodus is not a travelogue. It is a declaration of identity. Modern maps draw a sharp line between Africa and the Middle East. The ancient world did not. The Sinai was a bridge, not a border. Egypt Kemet was an African civilization that ruled Canaan for centuries. To its south lay Nubia, Kush, and Ethiopia. Soldiers, traders, priests, and families moved freely across this corridor. The Bible itself reflects this reality. Moses marries a Cushite woman. African soldiers appear in Levantine armies. A mixed multitude leaves Egypt. This means the ancient Israelites were never isolated. They existed within an Afro-Asiatic world of constant interaction. But precision matters. Connection does not mean origin. Influence does not mean identity. Africa shaped Israel, but Israel was not Africa. To understand this, we must abandon modern racial categories. The concepts of black and white did not exist in the ancient mind. Identity was tribal, cultural, and geographic, not racial. Anthropology and ancient DNA tell us that Israelites were Levantine people adapted to a high UV environment. They likely had brown to dark brown skin, dark hair, and brown eyes. They did not look European. They were not sub-Saharan African. They were part of a spectrum of brown peoples stretching from North Africa all the way through the Levant. The European depiction of Israelites as white is a modern myth. The claim that they were a single African race is also a modern construction. The ancient world was far more blended and far less obsessed with purity. Everything changed with exile. When Babylon destroyed Jerusalem, the Israelites lost their land, their king, and their temple. In exile, they transformed. Oral traditions were written down. The Torah was compiled. Monotheism became absolute. A people of the land became a people of the law. This monumental shift allowed Jewish identity to survive dispersion. But as Jewish communities settled across Europe, North Africa, and Central Asia, they gradually came to resemble the populations around them. Judaism became global. The original Israelite ethnicity became diverse. Today's Israel is a mosaic. There are Jews of European descent, Jews from the Middle East and North Africa, Ethiopian Jews who preserved ancient traditions, and there are Palestinians descendants of the very same ancient Levantine populations. Genetic studies show deep, shared ancestry between them. Some of these ancient people remained on the land and, over centuries, became Christian or Muslim. Others were dispersed across the globe and later returned. Today, power is uneven. The land is contested. Millions live under occupation while others hold full citizenship. This is not ancient history. This is history still unfolding. So why does this story provoke so much fear? Because history is used as a weapon. Origins are twisted into ownership claims. Scripture becomes a deed. Archaeology becomes ammunition. But when history is forced to justify modern politics, truth is always the first casualty. The Israelites were real people. Highland farmers, survivors of collapse, children of Canaan, shaped by Africa and Asia alike. They were not a race. They were not a monolith. They were a crossroads. The search for purity in history always fails because purity never existed. Perhaps the most important lesson the Israelites left us is not what they looked like, but how they remembered. They remembered oppression. They remembered failure. They remembered the land. History is not a closed book. It is a conversation. And the more we listen to the stones, the soil, and the DNA, the more we realize that we are all far more connected than our borders would have us believe. Thank you for watching. If this conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share.